1 Kings 18, verse 1. Came to pass after many days that the word of Yahweh came to Eliah the third year, saying, Go, show yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain upon the earth. And Eliah went to show himself to Ahab, and the famine was severe in Samaria. And Ahab called Obadiah, and Obadiah, his name means a servant of Yahweh, who was over the household. Now Obadiah feared Yahweh greatly. For it was so when Jezebel, that's Ahab's Canaanite wife, the daughter of Ethbaal, king of Sidon, cut off the prophets of Yahweh, that Obadiah took 100 prophets and hid them by faith in a cave and fed them with bread and water. And Ahab said to Obadiah, Go through the land to all the fountains of water and to all the brooks. Perhaps we may find grass and save the horses and mules alive. Look for an oasis where maybe a little bit of water is seeping up. You see, we haven't gone through any of these very severe droughts. I think 1964 was a very severe drought in this area. But when I was a boy in the late 1930s, I can remember one evening my father says, the well's drying up. We have to do something drastic. So he walks over the pasture, back and forth over the pasture over here, where I was raised on the farm on 501. And in the morning, he goes over to the neighbors with his car and comes back with a scoop tied on, and they harness the team, and my father's driving the team. My grandfather is running the scoop, and they start scooping out ground. I said, What are you doing? He said, There's a spring down here. Why do I know that? Well, look around here, he said. Here's grass growing, and that means there's water underneath here. And so we have to scoop off the top and release the water that's coming up from down below, so that the livestock isn't going to die. Oh, I've been through it. That was the Dust Bowl era. That was the time when my parents used to describe making hay with sweaters and coats on, because tons of ground was flowing through the atmosphere and blotting out the sun. Hard to dry hay that summer, and it was cold and cool all summer long because of the Dust Bowl. You younger people don't know anything. Oh, the Dust Bowl is a thing of history. The Dust Bowl is not a thing of history. You're going to see Dust Bowl conditions again. I can guarantee you that, because this is what the Bible says is going to happen. Famines in various places. So they scooped out the ground. I don't know how deep it was, maybe 4 or 5 feet deep. And then they put the team away, and in the morning, there were several feet of water in that hole. And that's how the livestock survived. They went down to the water hole and they drank. But you see, this is what is going on here. Ahab said, we can't lose all the military animals, all the chariot horses and the mules that pull the supply wagons. We can't lose them, or the enemy is going to get us. So we have to somehow rescue them, go through the land and find an oasis where there's grass, where we can take the military draft animals and they can perhaps be saved, so that we are not going to be overcome by the enemy. Listen, by outsourcing all of these things that the American army has done, we are very vulnerable at this moment. Do you know that? It's not like 1941, where in a few months they were building B-24 Liberators in the River Rouge plant out at Ford, or when Glenn Martin was building planes down Baltimore and a number of factories that had been idled, and he moved his equipment in and planes started to be built in a hurry. What are we going to do? We have to make machines now. We have to build buildings maybe. Or take over the Farm Show building in Harrisburg. That was once an assembly plant for airplane motors. In case you don't know, the main arena was, we didn't have Farm Show in the Second World War. They were assembling airplane motors there in the main arena, that large. And you don't see how serious it is. Most people are oblivious. They just go through life. They figure everything's it might get a little bit hard. This is going to get serious before long, unless some action is taken very, very soon. There is oil here in our country. There is fuel, coal, but are they going to let us use coal from this foolishness, global warming? Well, here it says, Obadiah, you go through the country and you see if you can find an oasis to try and save the horses, the military draft animals, that we don't lose all the beasts. So they divided the land between them to pass over into it. And Ahab went one way by himself, and Obadiah went another way by himself. And as Obadiah was in the way, behold, Eliah met him. And he knew him and fell on his face and said, "Is it you, my superior Eliah?" He had great respect for Eliah, you see. And he said to him, "It is I. Go and tell your sovereign, behold, Eliah is here." He said, "Wait a minute." He said, "How have I sinned against you?" He said, "When I deliver a message like that into the hand of Ahab, he's going to kill me, because when he comes and doesn't find you here because the Spirit has grabbed you and taken you somewhere, then he's going to kill me immediately. So now you say, go and tell your sovereign. When we couldn't find you, he went to all the surrounding countries and took oaths of them. Do you know where Eliah is? No, we don't know. And then he said, as soon as I've gone, then the Spirit of Yahweh will carry you where I don't know. And so when I come back and tell Ahab he can't find you, he'll kill me. But your servant fears Yahweh. And then Eliah said, no, I'll just sit right down here and wait for you. You go get Ahab. And so that's what the proposal was, to have a contest with the priests of Baal. Now, in the 19th chapter, Ahab told Jezebel, bad thing, bad choice. You don't tell the wife of your bosom, especially when she's an unconverted heathen. He told Jezebel all that Eliah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Eliah saying, so let the Elohim do to me and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by tomorrow. I'm going to kill you by tomorrow. About this time. And he saw that, he arose and went for his life and came to Beersheba down in the Negev, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there, and he went into the wilderness, into the Maktesh Ramon. You've seen pictures on the cover of the Sacred Name Broadcaster of the Maktesh Ramon. We've driven through the Maktesh Ramon a number of times, and there are juniper trees there, and he sits down under a juniper tree. What am I going to do now? Jezebel's after me. I got to run as fast as I can. So evening comes, he lies down and he sleeps under the juniper tree, and an angel touched him, said to him, arise and eat. He looked, and behold, there was at his head a cake baked on the coals and a cruse of water. And he ate and drank and laid himself down again. The angel of Yahweh came again the second time and touched him. Eliah, get up here, arise and eat. The journey is too great for you. And he arose and ate and drank and went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mount of Elohim. Did Yahweh ever provide food for you miraculously like that? Well, we moved to Idaho, and things weren't so good sometimes. I didn't get paid for several weeks sometimes because the man I worked for didn't have the money to pay me. So I came home one evening, and here's this big feast out on the table. I said, what's going on here? What should I know about what this is? And then my oldest son said to me, Daddy said, we got this off the dump. I said, you what? My family has now been reduced to eating off the dump. Well, I found out it wasn't quite that bad. The stores would take marginal produce that they want to restock their stores, and they'd put it out at along the driveway into the dump. And you could go there and get some pretty good vegetables sometimes, and that's what they had done. And boy, did we have a feast, all free of charge. But I don't recommend it too often, and don't go down to Lebanon Farms where they dump and try to eat off the dump. It might not be so palatable. But anyway, how many times has Yahweh given you things like that? I remember working in a yard one time in Idaho, and a woman came over from the house next door, and she said, why? She said, do you like apricots? I said, sure, I like apricots. Well, she said, I have 2 apricot trees behind the house here. She said, if you want the apricots, you can have them. I said, I'll take them along after I'm done with the work, working in the yard here. So evening came, and I spread a canvas around the tree, and I shook the tree, and down came the apricots. My wife canned something like 40 or 50 quarts of apricots that time. We had apricots running out our ears. The kids were eating apricots. We bought the farm in upstate Pennsylvania. It was in the fall of the year when we moved up. What could we get off the farm in the fall of the year? Nothing. Yet I went walking around, and I found a fence line with a lot of plum trees. And so I picked several bushels of plums and brought them along, and brought them in, and Mrs. Meyer cut them up and took the seeds out and froze the plums, and we had plum pie and whatever else she made. Delicious stuff. You know, Yahweh does things like this. He provides for us if we have faith to believe and act. So here, what I want to emphasize is Yahweh fed Eliah at the brook Kerith. Yahweh fed Eliah at Zarephath. He fed Eliah when Eliah lost his courage and started running. And still, Yahweh fed Eliah with food that lasted in his body for 40 days. Can you imagine? Yahweh took care of Eliah for more than 3.5 years. Isn't that just great? Now that ought to give us courage. By obeying Yahweh's Shemitah year commandment, we'll have the food stocked up for the next few years. And this is a blessing from Almighty Yahweh. Now, Isaiah chapter 11. We want to increase our faith today. I have good news for you. The kingdom of Yahweh is coming. Don't just look down. You know, Peter, when they saw Yahshua walking on the stormy Sea of Galilee, everybody was scared, and Peter said, if this is you, Master, then let me come and meet you on the sea. Come on, he said. And so Peter got out of the boat and started walking toward Yahshua. Suddenly he sees the wind blowing, the spray, and he looks down, whoa, and he starts sinking. And we can't look down And we can't look at what's right ahead of us and be concerned. We want to think about what lies a little further ahead, what is there, the kingdom of Yahweh. So what does Joshua have to do? He has to reach out quick and grab Peter's hand. Why did you doubt? He said. You were walking on the ocean. Why did you doubt? How many people are going to become doubters when things get really tough? Over the next how many years? I don't know. I don't want to set dates to these prophecies. All I want to do is show you the prophecies and then get prepared for them. But don't become concerned. Take one day at a time. Live one day at a time. In times of pressure in the past, I've had to do that. To live one day at a time. And remember, this too shall pass. This too shall pass. Look ahead beyond this time of trouble. And what do we see? The second coming of Yahshua. The establishment of the kingdom of Yahweh. Isaiah 11. Isaiah 11. And there shall come forth a shoot, a choter in the Hebrew, out of the stock of Jesse, out of the family tree of Jesse. And a branch out of his root shall bear fruit. And the Spirit of Yahweh shall rest. This isn't David, this is Yahshua the Messiah, the descendant of Jesse through David. Spirit of Yahweh shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom, and the Spirit of understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, and the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of Yahweh. And his delight shall be in the fear of Yahweh. He shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, nor decide after the hearing of his ears. I want you to put these two words together. They're over under. Judge, decide. This is what Yahshua is going to do. He's going to be the righteous judge. He will be the king, the royalty, who will judge and decide. His delight will be in the fear of Yahweh. He'll be obedient to Yahweh's covenant. He'll fear Yahweh. He shall not judge after the sight of his eyes. Well, sometimes things don't look right. Then you ask the questions, and then a different situation emerges. Or decide after the hearing of his ears. But with righteousness shall he judge the poor and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. This is Yahshua the Messiah now come to rule and to implement the obedience to Yahweh's Torah. And righteousness shall be the girdle of his waist, and faith, the faithfulness, the girdle of his loins. Now here's where the wolf dwells with the lamb. We didn't take down our backdrop from the feast last fall. Here's where we got this backdrop from. The wolf shall dwell with the lamb, the leopard shall lie down with the kid, the calf, and the young lion and the fatling together. And a little child shall lead them. A little child doesn't need to worry about these ferocious animals. And the cow and the bear shall feed, and their young ones shall lie down together. The lion shall eat straw like the ox, and the sucking child shall play on the hole of an asp. Accidentally, the child is playing on the hole of an asp. And an asp is a very poisonous snake. And the weaned child shall put his hand in the adder's den. This child doesn't know better. And so when he's playing, he finds a hole and sticks his hand in to see what's in the hole. And this is a very dangerous, poisonous snake again. They shall not hurt nor destroy in my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of Yahweh as the waters cover the sea. So what's Yahweh trying to tell us here? Is he trying to tell us, oh, I'm going to change the ferocious nature of animals? Yes, he's going to do that. But beyond that, I'm convinced that he's going to say, well, these are ferocious beasts, but there are people that are also like ferocious beasts. And I'm going to change the nature of people. I'm going to change their hearts. It shall come to pass in that day that the root of Jesse, that stands for an ensign, a flag of the peoples, to rally the peoples, to him shall the nations seek, and his resting place shall be glorious. That means that there's going to be a change in attitude of his subjects. Hearts will be changed. And it shall come to pass in that day that Yahweh will set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people that shall remain from Assyria. The Israelites never returned from Assyrian captivity. As I've shown in sermons in the past, they were released and they started up through Europe and eventually wound up as far west as they could go in the British Isles. And then the New World opened up here in North America. And here is where many of the descendants of the Israelites took refuge.